something that's really, really important to me in my practice is books. And I have a whole library in the studio of art books, and I pull them down often to inspire me, or when I'm feeling stuck, or when I'm not sure how to tackle something. Sometimes I just need to open a book and it's like, I need to paint right now. So I wanted to share a few with you today. So the first one, it was my birthday a couple of weeks ago, and my incredible husband had noticed me eyeing this up lustfully in several bookshops, and decided to surprise me with it, which is amazing. There is another one in this series by Faden called Great Women Artists, and that is also a fantastic book, but it has sculptors and all different other flavours of artists. As I'm a painter, painters are my jam, so this was exactly the right one, the one that I wanted. So it's a beautiful book, big hardcover book. And basically what it has is every single page is an image and a little bit of blurb about a great female painter, or just a great painter. You'll notice on the cover the word women has been crossed out because I really like that. It's just a book of great painters. It's been on my desk. Every now and again I just pick it up and leaf through, and there are so many incredible artists in this book. Some contemporary, some sort of historic, and all of them fascinating, absolutely fascinating. You'll hear in my next podcast episode, which is coming out at the beginning of July, I talk with Carrie Brummer a lot about the way that women have been so poorly represented in art history. And I have a degree in art history, like it's something that I studied at university. It's always been a particular special interest of mine. And I barely knew, we weren't taught about any female artists. Like it was just, there was such a big gaping hole in my education in this area. So sort of in the last 10 years or so, I've really worked to expand my knowledge of female artists and just get to know them, because they are so much more interesting than the guys. To the point now where I've sort of lost interest in male artists altogether. There are just so many interesting female artists in the world, and that's what I'm interested in personally. So it was lovely to be able to kind of flick through this book and say like, oh, I know a bit about her, and I know a bit about her, and I know a bit about her. But my goal is to be able to have like some knowledge of every single one of these artists. Obviously, some of them are favourites. Look at the colours on that. So some of them are favourites. Some of them will be more appealing to me than others. But I would like to know a little bit about every single one and be able to to talk about it. Gwen John is an absolute favourite. And this book is a really good start. Like if you aren't aware of that many female artists, which I think people are more aware these days, but if you're kind of like struggling to name, there's a test. Like name 5 female artists. Okay. Now name 5 female artists who are active before 1900. And that's where things get a little bit more difficult. So if you struggle with something like that, then this is a really good kind of starting place where you can investigate all sorts of incredible women. They're just so much more interesting than the men. I think probably because they've had to fight harder and they've had more, as you know, women have historically, they've had more kind of difficult stuff to go through just existing in the world. I wish that they hadn't had to go through that stuff, but it does make them super duper interesting, and it makes their stories interesting, and I think it makes their art more interesting, which is why historically so much of women's art has been appropriated by men and passed off as their own. Again, this is something that Carrie and I talk a lot about in our next podcast episode, so do keep an eye out for that one. But yeah, this book is a brilliant starting point. And I also recommend listening to the Great Women Artists podcast, which I'll pop a link for that in the description. Really good one to have on while you're in the studio. And I didn't pull this off the shelf because I wasn't going to talk about it today, but this is another really good grounding in feminist art history, I guess. Or just, this is the story of art without men. So it's just the women. And it's amazing. This is my mission. I'm going to be going through this. Deepening my education. There's so much good stuff there. Highly, highly recommended. Okay, so that's the first one that I wanted to share with you. The next one is this one. Suzanne Valadon, Model Painter Rebel. Suzanne Valadon she's one of my studio guardians. I can't remember who it was. I think it might have been Barbara Sher, who wrote a whole bunch of books about choosing the sort of life that you want to live, basically, especially if you have multiple interests. But one of the things that she recommended was having a council of mentors. So people who you didn't necessarily have to know, they could be living or dead or famous people or whatever, people who are doing the things that you wanted to be doing, living the lives that you wanted to live. And you were supposed to consult your council of mentors when you came across a difficult situation, or you're like, what would Suzanne Valadon do in this particular situation? And it's supposed to kind of inspire you and help give you a different perspective. And for me, Suzanne Valadon is very firmly in that. I even have a photograph of her in the studio above my desk, kind of looking down on me. So she keeps watch over me in the studio. Her and also Yayoi Kusama, who is another one. Both of these women, both incredible artists, but also both just did their own thing. Like they did what they weren't supposed to do and they found a way to exist in the world that worked for them. And I'm always looking for stories like that, you know, as a neurodivergent woman, as somebody who has had difficulty in the past with finding my place in the world and carving my own path. Women like this, they really paved the way for me. So, Suzanne Valadon, this book in particular, I think it's done by the Glyptotek, which is a museum here in Copenhagen. It was the exhibition catalogue for an exhibition of her work that was on a few years ago. And I just adore her work. Like, not only is she a wonderful, wonderful painter, she was also just like really sure of who she was and what she wanted. And it definitely wasn't to be a nice, polite society lady or follow in any kind of groove that society had laid down for her. So she started out as a circus performer. She was very acrobatic. After being an absolute terror as a child, she was so naughty and constantly like running away from school. And she went to a school that was run by nuns, I think, if I remember rightly. And she just constantly flouted their conventions and their expectations and things. And she was uncontainable. She then went on to be a circus performer. She had a fall. She injured herself very badly, so she couldn't do that anymore. So she decided to go and become an artist model. And she ended up modelling for Degas, I think, to start with, and then Renoir. She was one of the most famous models and used her time as a model. Just look at the colours. Look at the colours she uses. She's so incredible. Such an incredible painter. Anyway, she used the time she spent as an artist model to learn all about painting and drawing and ended up becoming... I'm getting distracted because looking at these paintings is heaven for my eyeballs. Like the way that she uses colour is so... I don't know, it feels so modern, but also very much kind of its time. I have this one hanging up in my house. Yeah, sorry, I'm getting distracted because I'm looking at all these beautiful paintings and it's making me want to go and paint. I have this one as well. Prints, obviously, not originals. I love a Suzanne Valadon original. That would be incredible. If you don't know about her, she's not only a brilliant painter and worth kind of looking into from an artistic perspective, but she's also got a cracking good story. And there's a brilliant biography of her called Renoir's Dancer. This one, Renoir's Dancer, The Secret Life of Suzanne Valadon by Catherine Hewitt. And that's got a fantastic biography of her and her life and the sort of the environment that she was growing up in and how she sort of came to be a painter. Family difficulties and the unconventional way that she managed her life. These drawings, they're so beautiful. Anyway, Suzanne Valadon, this is a fabulous book. If you don't know anything about her, she's definitely one to look out for. brilliant. I reach for this one often. Like I said, she's on my council of imaginary mentors. Yeah, constant source of inspiration for me. Okay, we're sticking with the theme for the moment of women. This is another exhibition that I just went to see very, very recently. And it was actually in a place, I'll put a photo on the screen, because the place where the exhibition was held, it has these beautiful gardens, and it looked like an Impressionist painting. Like, it looked like walking into this beautiful, blousy, light-filled painting. It was absolutely stunning and really sort of added to the atmosphere of the exhibition. The exhibition had the same title, Impressionism and Its Overlooked Women. As you might have realised by now, women in art, kind of my thing. And this was fabulous. I mean, it was incredible to see these paintings in real life, and I set the alarm off a couple of times just because I was trying to like press my nose up against them. I have a really like tactile, sensory connection with paintings, and I always want to, I mean, I think a lot of artists do this, I always kind of want to rub my nose up against them and see how they're made. How'd they do that? What brush strokes are they using? Why have they done that way? Why have they made this choice and not that choice? So this was, I mean, it was billed as the forgotten women of Impressionism, but they had, the vast majority of the exhibition was made up of Berthe Morisot, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, who was one of the few female founders of Impressionism. So she's hardly forgotten. She's probably the one that most people have heard of. But it was lovely to see those paintings in the flesh. It was 5 or 6 women. So we had Berthe Morisot, then Mary Cassatt, who is one that I sort of tangentially knew about, but I definitely want to look up more about her. She was cracking. And also she seems like she might have been a bit of a weirdo, and I'm always drawn to people who seem like they might be a bit weird. So she never had children. The way that she made art was kind of, I don't know, she pushed the boundaries a lot more. Like, she was doing some really, really interesting stuff. Printmaking and experimenting and all sorts of really good stuff. So I definitely want to look more into Mary Cassatt. Eva Gonzalez, it was all very pretty. It didn't exactly light a fire under me. But, you know, respect. Then we have Marie Brackmans, who... There's a self-portrait in here, which is an exquisite draftsperson. There is a self-portrait in here which kind of knocks your socks off. Here it is. Look at that. Seeing this in the flesh was like incredible. Her eyes and her expression. She just kind of gazes at you from the canvas, and it's unapologetic and it's wonderful. You can really get a sense of kind of the person behind the portrait, self-portrait. So she's a very interesting one. And Marie Bashkirtsev, they had some extracts from her journal, which they had sort of laid out on a plinth thing. And I haven't read it. I've read kind of extracts of it before. And she was an absolute firecracker. Like, she was obsessed with getting famous. She was endlessly frustrated at sort of not being allowed out to go and paint the way that she wanted to. Like, she wanted to go out into the world and observe people and paint on location, and of course she couldn't do any of that because of the time, you know, without a chaperone. And yeah, she just kind of railed against it. And it just really made me think, like, what incredible things could these women have accomplished had they not been so constrained by society. Like, any woman that we have heard of in art history has done so against incredible odds. Like, it's really amazing. So I can't wait to get her journal and read it, because I think the whole thing will be amazing. And her painting is stunning as well. I mean, really beautiful, really interesting. So it's got a little essay about each one of the women, and then it's got the catalogue. There were some Manet, I think there was some Seurat, and which is a bit like, I mean, I understand they have to contextualize these things, but if it's an exhibition about forgotten women, and right at the beginning you have like a bunch of paintings by men, it kind of felt a bit like, all right, whatever. But yeah, whatever. They had a whole bunch of stuff by actual women, which was amazing. So this is just the catalogue for the exhibition, and it has beautiful, beautiful paintings, beautiful light. Really lovely work. I mean, some of it is just so incredibly detailed. It was wonderful to see like the brush strokes, and this was wonderful. I mean, you can see the close-up. Whoops. You can see the close-up, and the whole painting here is just, the edges of the bench here are just like splodged in, kind of not really defined properly. More amazing women. Women are just, I think they're great. I really love this one. This one in the flesh was just beautiful. It's another Mary Cassatt. I sat in front of this one for about 20 minutes just staring at it. So good. I got a jelly plate recently. I finally caved, and apparently now I've joined a cult. And I'm really looking forward to kind of having a play and doing this. I've been saving it while we do the get the print shop up and running and get the podcast launched and all that kind of stuff. It's my sort of special treat for having a bit of a lull. I'm going to get the jelly plate out and have a jolly good play. But yeah, brilliant, beautiful, beautiful book. And now we're just going to take a little foray into something completely different. We have a secondhand bookshop pretty much right outside our front door, and they do these Dutch auctions where the price starts at like 150 krona, which is about, I don't know, $20, and then it gradually kind of goes down every day, every couple of days, and it's fun sort of playing chicken with the books because the good stuff is more expensive, but maybe it goes a bit faster, and then eventually you get down to like 50p or something, and sometimes you get a bargain, sometimes all the good stuff's gone, so that's fun. But I did find this in there, and it's in French. Unfortunately, I would love to read it. My French is maybe not that good, but maybe if I read it, my French would improve as well. Christian Lacroix is obviously a fashion designer, and this is particularly about his work as a costumier or as a costumer for theatrical performances. I think it's specifically the opera. There's Don Giovanni. But it's his illustrations. Look at these. Oh, amazing. There's illustrations, there's photos of the final costumes, there's pages from his sketchbook. Oh, there's just this section that's on opera. So it's all sorts of theatrical performances. And they are utterly bonkers and utterly beautiful. I mean, if you've watched any of my videos, you know that I come up with black and white stripes are a thing that I wear a lot. It's kind of an obsession. I really want to draw this image. But yeah, it's just an absolutely beautiful book, really inspiring. I always love seeing how fashion designers and textile artists use sketchbooks. You'll know this if you watched my 2024 goals video. You'll know that I have a sort of secret desire to design some fabrics and team up with a fashion designer and make some clothes. I love fashion, I love clothes, and so this kind of tickles that part of me, as well as being just like amazingly illustrated. Like, these are amazing illustrations in themselves. So yeah, I don't know if this book is available in English, but even so, even just having it for the pictures, even if you don't understand a word of French, it's so worth it. And if you've ever been interested in doing fashion illustration, or you just like to see kind of how the fashion sausage is made, then yeah, well worth a look. I love all this detail. And the handwriting and the scribbles, it's just an absolute delight. So there we go, that's a few books that I have been pulling down off the studio library shelves recently. I hope you enjoyed this little walkthrough with me. Go buy books, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!